Hi, I'm Jim Bush,
Hi, I'm Leora Bush.
And I'm Yoshi.
and we're following God out of Christianity. Tonight we are going to be discussing episode 7, the Trinity. As it relates to following God out of Christianity, there is a difference between the concept of the Trinity, which is a church doctrine that we find in Christianity, as opposed to what Judaism teaches. And so tonight we want to begin our discussion, and Yoshi is going to give us a little bit of a background on the doctrine of the Trinity.
Well, Trinity basically is a pagan idea that there are three parts of God or three entities in a Godhead that make up one God. And, it's not an idea of Judaism. In fact, the core of Judaism is Deuteronomy 6:4. Hear, O Israel, the Eternal is our God. The Eternal is one. And that word of one is echad, which is a numerical one. It is not a separate but equal Trinity. And so the doctrines of Trinitarianism in Christianity basically came about at the Second Council of Nicaea. And at that point, there was, fighting within the church amongst the Arians who wanted to keep Christianity more of a monotheistic belief. And then there were the Trinitarian groups, and they obviously won. Because if you think about it, the Roman Empire was split between the East and the West. And the majority of the population was pagan. So it makes sense to have a Christian king at that time, or a Christian emperor, kind of consolidate the two issues and make Christianity and paganism mix better. And so the Trinity came about at that time. It's interesting to note that at the First Council of Nicaea, when they proclaimed Jesus to be divinity, that there was no talk of a Holy Spirit. So there was pretty much a bi-Unitarian belief of God. And so the Trinity didn't come about, until the Second Council. And you can read throughout even the New Testament, Jesus sort of himself butchers that idea that there's a Trinity. For instance, in Matthew 24:36, he says, "But of that day and hour knows no man, no, not the angels of heaven, but my Father only." So Jesus is saying, nobody knows what's going to happen except God. So if Jesus is supposedly God, why does he not know what God knows? So that's a little bit of background on the Trinity there.
Hear, O Israel, the Lord our God is one. Now you contrast that to Christianity that says, in the name of the Father, in the name of the Son, in the name of the Holy Spirit. It's like these names keep getting added on, these people keep getting added on, and it becomes confusing with a lot of people is that they see Christianity as categorizing God into categories. He's the Father, he's the Son, he's the Spirit. Mm-hmm. And in Judaism we find that this just isn't true. God is one. He's not a spirit. He's not the Holy Spirit. And this is a new concept that I've had to wrestle with in the last couple of years, is to understand the oneness of God and how important that is in my relationship with God. I address him as one, as and not as three separate people, or not as three having three departments. And one of the earlier books that I read coming out of Christianity was, of all books, Church Doctrine, and it's called Dates and Destiny. So you get a good look at this book here. I would highly recommend this book. It's written from a Christian perspective, but yet it gives a lot of backgrounds as to how church doctrine was developed. And Yoshi spoke about the Nicene Creed, and this was taking place, I believe, was in the late 300s, and almost 400 AD, before the church determined that this is a doctrine that we don't want to adopt. This is what we want to say. This is what represents Christianity, that God is indeed three persons and yet one. And of course, this was a definite deviation from Judaism, and churches have been developed and split over church doctrine, and you have the doctrine of the Holy Spirit and the baptism of the Holy Spirit. And we have all these things that we say that God is, and then when I read the Torah, I find that this isn't true at all. It's totally different from a Jewish perspective. And that's what we want to do in this group, Following God Out of Christianity. We want to show the difference between Christianity and Judaism, and that there is church doctrine that was developed. It took 300 to 400 years to decide on a doctrine of the church and what would represent Christianity. Taking Paul's writings and the early church fathers and consolidating them, and today now we have over 45,000 different flavors of churches, and depending on your personality and your family upbringing, you can pick a church that suits you just fine. Whereas in Judaism, the core belief is that there is only one God. He doesn't take on the form of a spirit. This is one of the fallacies we saw as we were examining the virgin birth. How can God impregnate a human being and be born of a woman? And saying that this is the second part of the Godhead of the Trinity, the Son. And then when Jesus died, and the gospel writers wrote about the Holy Spirit being given, and the Christians would replace the giving of the Torah, and they would call that the day of Pentecost, when the Holy Spirit was given and when they spoke in tongues. And when Paul talks about this in Acts, I believe it was Luke that talks about it in Acts, referring to that experience. And so we see there's a lot of things that have changed down through the years, and those who keep with the church doctrine are at odds with Judaism. And this is what we are finding in our journey out of Christianity. So what happens to us now that we've left Christianity? Do we become atheists? Of course not. Our heart's desire is to know the one true God of Israel, the God of Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob. It is our desire to follow the Torah, to return to the teaching of the Torah. This is in contrast to church doctrine, in contrast to what the Christian church is teaching. We are not at odds with Christians. Some of my most wonderful, trusted friends are Christians. But yet in recent days, the divide is getting greater and greater as we look into the Torah and into Judaism, is that Christians are beginning to distance themselves from us and saying, well, no, this isn't right. You are being deceived. You are blind. And I wonder what the church fathers were thinking when they began to develop some of these ideas. How did you, Yoshi, first come to understand the doctrine of the Trinity and to realize that this was not what Judaism was all about?
Well, whenever I was a Christian, I always thought this doctrine was quite odd because, you go through the Torah and it'll say God is one, God is, He is undivided, He's not a man, He's not the Son of Man. Then you get to the New Testament, it's like a completely different story. And so as a Christian, I was always very suspicious of the Trinity. And then once I left Trinitarianism and went over to the Unitarian Church, that's when I started really debating with Trinitarians on this subject. And after that, it becomes a point of, is Jesus even the Messiah? And if you come to the conclusion that He's not, then you have to just throw it all away. And so I think, to be honest with yourself, whenever you're coming to Judaism or to become a Noahide, you have to completely get rid of that idea of a Trinity because it's not found in anything except pagan lore. It's not realistic.
Yeah, it starts to unravel quite quickly then. Leo and I were talking this afternoon about if this was such an important issue within Judaism, why did not God express that to the Jewish people and through the giving of the Torah? Why didn't He say that I'm going to give the Torah first, and 2,000 years later, I'm going to manifest myself in human flesh and come to the earth and become a servant, and then I'm going to die, and then I'm going to send my Holy Spirit? Why was this not made clear to the Jews? This doctrine of the Trinity. if it had been, then we could address that and say, well, yes, this is what God intended. This is His purpose in giving us His plan of salvation for us. This is the Messiah coming, and this is the Holy Spirit coming. And yet we find none of this in the Torah. We find this to be totally foreign. We find this to be totally absurd. And it is foundational, coming out of Christianity, to abandon these ideas. The idea of not keeping the Sabbath. The idea of replacing the Torah with a New Testament. The idea of the virgin birth. The idea of Jesus as God. And now tonight, as we discuss the idea of the Trinity. All these are foundational in our understanding of who the God of the Bible is, the God of the Torah, the God of the Scriptures, the God of the Hebrew Bible, as I've becoming to be able to express it now when people ask me about, well, what about the Old Testament? Isn't that been done away with? And what about the New Testament? And for me, as I've stated in our group, that you have to begin with the understanding of the Torah. That if people don't understand that the Torah is foundational, you could argue till you're blue in the face, and it's not going to do any good. For if they cancel out what God has already given to us, and then try to replace that with something entirely different, well, then you're talking about a different religion entirely. And so I'm thankful for those in our group who are sharing about their journey out of Christianity and their journey of returning to the Torah. And we would encourage you to keep asking questions and to keep seeking out, have an open heart and an open mind towards the rabbis. We have some wonderful rabbis in our group, and I'm so thankful for those who share on a weekly basis. Michael Skolback and Tovia Singer and others that I can't pronounce their names, but they're wonderful rabbis, trust me. You see the videos up there that we post. And so take a listen and take it to heart. And we want to thank you, Yoshi, for joining us again here tonight in our living room. Hopefully one of these days we'll get together and get to meet you face to face and shake your hand and thank you for all your input into this group. And I'd like to thank my wife also for her patience and helping us do these videos and taking time out of her busy schedule and her housework to sit down and try to hammer out some of these ideas. It's new for us to do this on video, but it's something that we believe will be a help to you, and so we encourage you to keep watching and keep encouraging one another. And we'd also like to say Shabbat Shalom from our home here in Minnesota, and we hope that you'll have a blessed Shabbat this week, and to you, Yoshi, there in your home as well.
Yeah. Shabbat Shalom, Yoshi.
Shabbat Shalom. Thank you for joining us.
Thank you.